Aloha and welcome to another candidate interview for the election cycle 2024. We are so happy to have you here with us. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, welcome. And otherwise, you're seeing this pre-recorded. Maybe you're watching it on our website. And if you haven't visited our website at mauipononetwork.org, we have many candidate interviews. We're adding more every couple of days as we're interviewing the candidates. And I just want to say a big thank you to our volunteers who spend hours and hours putting together these interviews, doing the post-production, getting it posted on our website, managing our website. Here at Maui Pono Network, volunteers and the other people who support Maui Pono Network are dedicated to making sure that you, the citizens of Maui County, are informed as much as possible, that you have access to this information, that you have access to these interviews, you have access to informed, knowledgeable questions to these candidates. And we hope that you'll continue to educate yourself before the primary ballots come to your mailbox in the end of July, and then in the general election in November. Again, thank you for joining us. Please reach out to us if you have questions and visit our website. Tonight, we are so excited to have Mahina Poepoe here with the interview. I can't wait to hear her answers to her questions. She's a great speaker. She's eloquent, and we're going to get some good answers here. She's running for the District 13 state representative. And Mahina, welcome. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know why you're running for this office and just what motivates you to be out there, putting yourself out there.
Sure. Thank you so much. Aloha, and thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you folks today. My name is Mahina Poepoe. I'm currently elected as our State House representative for District 13, also known as a canoe district, very expansive geographically. It covers a part of Kahului starting at the airport, Paia, Haiku, East Maui through Kaupo, Molokini, Kaho'olawe, Lanai, and Molokai. I currently serve as the Vice Chair of the Water and Land Committee in the House and a member of the Finance Committee, as well as a member of the Corrections, Military, and Veterans Committee. Born and raised on Molokai. Prior to being elected, I was a legislative analyst for Councilmember Rollins Fernandez. I also did a lot of work in environmental nonprofits, volunteer and community activism work as well. And yeah, I'm really passionate about environmental issues and protecting our natural resources. But also as well addressing that in a holistic manner. And, you know, we have to uplift society and change our economy in order to make good environmental progress. So that's what motivated me to run for office the first time. And there's still a lot of work to be done. It's been 2 years, and, you know, I want to continue to do that work. So I'm running again.
Well, thank you, Mahina.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you're running again, because we have certainly a lot of issues here that we're facing, and one of them is around education. And we're kind of a very unique county where we really are not that empowered in terms of our education system. It's mostly in Oahu, mostly controlled in that area. The money that goes there also in terms of what determines our education for our young people here in the island. What would you do to support maybe a shift? Do you believe in more home rule so we have our own, county education group that would be more empowered? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you. I think the last time I was here, I had almost the same answer as I'm about to have right now, is that I absolutely support the concept of having more home rule in many things, right? Including our education system. I think through the 2 years of experience that I've had, I've been able to see things from a different perspective. And, you know, I do absolutely see how that centralized system, I think there's too much work for the system that we have in being that centralized place. I think a diversified system that is more close to the communities that it serves would be a better system to move to. How we get moving there, I think, is going to be a hard road, you know, unless the county would be willing to take on some of the operations of our school facilities. I think that's a conversation to also be had. I think maybe, advisory boards to the Board of Education from our county or counties might be an incremental step to getting there. But yeah, I mean, I support the home rule for that, but it's just getting there. It's going to be a long road.
Is there any specific legislation that you would like to see happen that would be coming up in the next session?
Well, over the past two, I think something that we saw this session was that there was an incredibly large lapse in DOE funding allocated to the DOE from the legislature for facilities improvements statewide. Paia school lost out on, I want to say almost $17 to $20 million because of, and they're overcrowded, right? And it's just the failure of this system that is responsible for getting the money and, going through all the RFP processes, the planning processes, and getting it spent or at least encumbered before it lapses. And so, we can only do so much appropriating the funds, but I realize that a big part of my job is also like nagging, honestly, the departments and like following up. So I'm going to start trying to have quarterly meetings with the facilities people at DOE to like follow up on all of our district projects to make sure they're on track to being spent down, because a lot of these, not all of them, I mean, sometimes issues do come up where there's legitimate reasons for why a project can't move forward, but the Paia project could have went, but it didn't. And so that really was an eye-opener for me. That was allocated prior to me getting in, and it lapsed after my first session. So, that was a learning curve for me, but I plan to be a lot more on it now with like following up on all of our projects and making that a more transparent process. So like that the public can follow along as well, I think would be really, really helpful.
Great, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Mahina. Lucianne, you have the next question. You're on mute, Lucianne.
My audio. Mahalo. Welcome to the Pono Network interview, Mahina. And I know you're very passionate about bringing better management to our water resources. And I know that you did introduce one very sweeping bill this time that made it almost to the finish line. And I wonder if you could explain, and I know you introduced a number of other very worthwhile bills that would, I think, help us manage our water resources more transparently. So could you give us a little bit of the 1, 2, 3 of what might be up next term for what you would like to see happen in the laws that affect managing our water resources?
Yeah, thank you. So my big water bill this session proposed some shifts, I like to say, to evolve the administration of the Commission on Water Resources Management. It was a long time coming. These are recommendations. What was in my bill were recommendations actually made in a 1994 study and report that, nobody picked up off the shelf. It just got made and left on the side. And then I picked it up and I was like, hey, we should try and do some of these things. But so that bill proposed, and also after observing some of the issues that came up after the Lahaina fires with,
Right.
What happened with the deputy director of the Seaworm, and seeing, how politics are so involved in our water. This is an attempt to try to start to depoliticize that the commission or the administration of the commission. So the bill proposed to replace the deputy director with an executive director that would be managed and hired by the commission itself rather than by the chair and then, the chair is managed by the governor. So it changes that power balance. And then it would have allowed the commission to choose to, if they want, to have the option to utilize independent counsel rather than be limited only to the Attorney General as counsel. Attorney General.
That's really important because
Yeah.
a lot of the times the state's attorneys just get it wrong.
Yeah.
And then they get returned in court, and then the commission has to do all their work over again.
Well, and we saw that with the shortly after the fires when the Attorney General representatives came out and claimed there wasn't enough water to fight the fires, and the county attorney said, no, that's wrong, there was. So that left a lot of distrust, I think, in our community, especially from the East Maui, with the East Maui irrigation system. So yeah, and it did other things too. It required the chair of the commission would not be able to be the chair of the chair of the BLNR. The commission would be able to select their own chair. And then the last thing, it would require the commission to set up safeguards for conflicts of interest. So it didn't pass.
In case people don't know what our water commission does, they have the authority over the water in our island, Maui, and all the other islands. Our county doesn't have authority over how much water goes where, how much water goes in the stream. There is a commission that's supposed to be made up of experts that's supposed to make these decisions. But the leadership of this commission is very important. As you're saying, if you have someone with a political agenda as the leader, then things that need to be done do not get done.
Yeah. So the bill didn't pass, but I still think it made a positive impact for, and I'm going to keep working on it as we go on, as long as it takes, hopefully next year. But we had a lot of good testimonies. Students from Maui Kaipuni came over and were really powerful and impactful. And, there are other members now who are committed to working on this issue. And I think even though a bill doesn't pass, it still made an impact for, laying the groundwork going forward. So still positive, even though disappointing.
Well, thank you for all of your efforts. It was a grand sweeping thing. And like you said, it had been recommended 20 years ago for good cause. And I applaud your courage for taking it up. And you had a lot of allies. You had a lot of, you weren't standing alone. Many of your fellow colleagues in the House and even in the Senate stood behind you. But, we do have those little machine wheels that turn in there and make it hard for some things to get done. Well, thank you for letting us know about your good efforts and about how you're thinking about our water resources.
Yeah, thank you for that groundwork, Mahina. And Anne will ask the next question. Anne, if you need to unmute.
Hi. Thank you for running again, Mahina. So I know you've been a champion for and have proposed and passed bills for to address climate change and also conservation and cultural preservation. Can you share with us some of those bills that we either proposed that passed or didn't pass that you're most proud of?
I'm probably most proud of my work around water. I introduced a lot of bills for water, but some other ones. Last year this session, I introduced a constitutional amendment proposal to guarantee each individual the right to a clean and healthy environment. It's nationwide. It's a thing that is being proposed around different states, and it didn't go, but that's something to keep looking forward to. What else? Oh, I did pass a bill this year, which might seem like a small thing, but to me, it's actually a big thing. It allows burial council members to remain as holdover members for a longer period of time, because right now on our burial councils, it's such a unique expertise that recruiting members is not, the same as recruiting members for like a transportation commission or something. It's a very unique position. So we have a hard time recruiting and placing members that sometimes the commissions are defunct or the burial councils are defunct for long periods of time because they can't get a quorum. So being able to maintain membership is really important for, you know, work around our iwi kupuna and protecting burials and our cultural sites. So I'm hoping that this helps to help that situation that we have. Yeah, what else did I do?
Isn't that a state in the Hawaii state constitution to honor the iwi kupuna and not exhume it, which is done in our history time and time again?
Well, if you know, iwi kupuna are found, it is supposed to go through the burial council process. But if there's no burial council, you know what happens sometimes, and it also can hold up certain applications from going through that need like burial council recommendations or review. So, I mean, yes, we should be, but we just need to maintain our oversight commissions. And, you know, I've been nagging about that too.
Well, thank you for exerting an effort on that.
Thank you.
Needs to happen.
Great, thank you for that. And Bruce, you'll be the next. You need to unmute.
So the sign of a good statesperson isn't just what they vote on, but what bills they introduce. You've been very active in your first term in office. Your second term of office, should you be elected, what bills do you want to work on, introduce, and champion through the legislative process?
So definitely I am going to continue my work around environment, natural resources, and, you know, making sure that we're trying to set up our next generation to still have these things, right? So it's really hard to put in a box of like these few things. But definitely I'm going to continue my work around water. It's a huge issue in our district. You know, we have a lot of generational traditional kalo farmers that have been trying for decades to get water back in the stream so they can grow kalo. So that's going to be probably work for my entire political career, is restoring water. What else? Improving access for our rural communities. You know, Molokai and Lanai specifically, there's the provider shortage that we're all very aware of, but for Molokai and Lanai specifically, we have a transportation barrier with air access because we fly a lot of patients off island to receive care for specialty care. And, you know, primarily Mokulele is our only airline provider, and the inconsistency of service results in some pretty dire outcomes. So trying to get more. So this year I introduced a bill to start a pilot project for chartering flights for non-medical air transportation. The bill didn't pass, but we did get $2 million in the budget to develop the program anyway. So that's what I'm working on right now. But in the long term, I think, you know, looking at telehealth resources that we can use, that we can bring into our communities more. I also passed the telehealth bill previous session to increase access to telehealth. Looking at being able to bring more providers into Molokai and Lanai rather than having to fly the patients to the providers for specialty care. And also looking at like reimbursement rates for insurance. There's a lot of work to be done around healthcare. So that's an area of focus for me. And then also improving our public education systems, because if, you know, we're not laying that foundation work in our public education systems, I kind of feel like, what is this all for? If we're not setting up the next generation to have it a little bit easier than we did. You know, our teachers are struggling to survive on their salaries. And I really think we need to take a more holistic approach than we are now in our public education system. I've introduced bills to provide free meals in public schools, universal free meals. Those didn't go, but we did pass some bills to improve access to mental health resources in schools, additional funding for rural and remote schools. But yeah, I also did a bill for teacher vouchers for teacher housing programs, but that didn't go either. But I mean, you know, I'm gonna keep working on it. I just don't really feel like there's any clear cut one issue, because everything for me just like quickly goes into a web of issues, you know, and everything's related. So I'm trying to find ways to work on things like all together and uplift everything together, because otherwise something's falling through the cracks. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you. I wish you best of luck
Thank you.
in the next legislative session.
Great.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes. Again, thank you, Mahina. Let's go to Asia next. Asia?
Mahina, I just have to say that you answer the question so well that I have 400 questions that come up, which is great. I just really appreciate the way that you have this attention to detail. So I'm going to kind of shift though, because I can tell, like you said, there's so many issues and there's so many things I'm trying to lift it all together. Maybe just a point of contact for the people in your areas. How do you handle such a large area, and how do you get out and talk to people? Where do you put your priorities there? What have been some of the challenges? What have you really liked about being in an area that just covers so many? I mean, you covered not only different islands, but just diverse populations within those islands as well.
Yeah, so it's super unique district in that, right? How do I get around? I do my best during session. It's really, really hard to get around the district because I'm back and forth to Molokai. You know, I come home on Friday night, I leave on Sunday day. So, but during, you know, and it's a little bit easier to get to the Maui part of my district. To Lanai, it takes more coordinating. It's pretty costly. You know, we get a legislative allowance to do things like this, to travel the district. For me, it's a lot more expensive. But other than that, you know, I do my best to get around. I've been to Lanai a few times, and you know, I try to make the most of my time that I have there. Zoom has been great. Phone calls, you know, I will meet however we can meet, right? An email thread. Sometimes that's all that we can do, but it's really important to me to get in the communities as much as possible. It's not always the easiest thing to do logistically, because I'm a really Āina based person. So I like to know and like touch the place that I'm like, you know, speaking for. So yeah, that's
so I hope that the other state representatives recognize that you have a much more challenging job as far as reaching all of your constituents than they do.
Yeah, I tell them about it.
So I hope our listeners are thinking about this, that you cover, so it's just diverse populations. You're covering like the most rural of the rural, and you're also covering the most urban of the urban that we have in our county. So what do you find is a similarity across the populations that you serve? What are really, you've touched on these issues that are important to you, but what do you find is just a common base between all of your constituents?
Yeah, so definitely the cost of living. I think in our rural areas, it's actually, you know, a lot of cost of living things are heightened because of the additional cost to like get things there, really, like shipping goods in and stuff. So, you know, access to housing too in our rural areas, it's an issue everywhere, and affordable housing. But definitely cost of living issues, I would say, is a commonality. Also things like, you know, access to long-term care, healthcare. And I try to think about that too, as like, I try to think for every area of our district, right? I'm from Molokai, but I can't be Molokai centric. So I try to find the areas that there are commonalities, and, you know, look at bills that can help all areas of our district. And I think I've done a pretty good job at that.
Great. So thank you for that. And I'll ask the next question, which has to do around food sovereignty. Certainly, you just mentioned having cost of living being very high. You mentioned certainly your advocacy for the water, which is tied into our agricultural system. So on a state level, what can you do and what can you advocate to help us so that we can become more self-sufficient and maybe even start to reduce the cost of some of the produce, the food that we rely on?
Yeah, so at the state level, a program that I really, really like is the Double Bucks program. It's a bucket of funding that people who receive SNAP can get like 2 for the price of 1, or like their 1 SNAP dollar is worth 2 Double Bucks dollars. And local vendors and agriculture producers can participate in that program. So I feel like it's a real win-win. I think, looking at our food hubs and building out our food hubs, and I feel like our food hubs are good for like that small marketplace for, producers who don't produce at the scale that they would need to for like a mass commercial venture, but for like sharing in communities and having that small marketplace is really important. And also in like times, I think our food hubs, well, I'm really familiar with the Molokai one. They also step in and as gap fillers, right? So our Molokai one, they noticed that we import like 100,000 eggs a month. So they started a chicken egg program where they train you how to have chickens, and they give you a whole kit of chickens and the coop, and they help teach you about the market, and they have all the supplies to clean the eggs. And so now we have like a pretty robust egg operation on island that is completely local. So I really like the ground bottom up, community up approach from the state. I think providing more support for our local farmers, finding ways to make better access to land for agricultural, for small farms, I think is something we can look at like doing better at.
Great. Well, it's certainly inspirational in terms of having what you just talked about for the egg production for your area. So great. Thank you for that. And Lucienne, you'll be next.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, if you can unmute, there you go.
Yes, I thought we were going to give Anne a chance because she has to leave. Yes, no?
Anne, do you have a question that you wanted to ask quickly before Lucienne? You're on mute also.
Sorry about that. So yeah, I'll ask a quick one. So yeah, Mahina, we've witnessed so much corruption in the last, I guess 5 or 6 years at the state level, and also incidents of the backdoor deals and kind of this old guard club and things like, and there's been so lack of oversight in some of the projects, such as the rail project. We've got the Kealoha scandal, that corruption case. We've got Melton Choi's bribery cases. I was going to say Dennis Mitsunaga, but I guess they were ruled not guilty. So, but so many cases like that. How can we like prevent or avoid this kind of these cases of bribery? And a lot of them are just, maybe they were there before, but that they were not ever revealed. But what is your perception of that?
Tough question.
It's tough.
Part of avoiding bribery is that the person just shouldn't do bribery.
Yeah,
but yeah, but it's hard because a lot of the laws that would need to change, we have to have enough people to vote for them to pass the law, right? And for me, I think that's, I really like public financing. I participate in it.
Yes.
This is my 2nd year participating in it. We got a bill really far last session. Again, didn't pass. And I think part of the reason given why it didn't pass was that it was just too costly at this time. But I think as long as we still have the members in the House and the Senate willing to continue to work on a better public financing mechanism, that could help. You know, I don't accept corporate donations or corporate lobbyist donations, but that's a personal choice. You know, I don't know that maybe that should be something that isn't a personal choice, and it's just everybody has to do it.
Yes.
You know, so yeah. I don't know. I don't have the silver bullet for how to stop that though.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, Lucianne?
All right, my turn. You know, your district, because I live in your district, and anyone that lives in Paia, Haiku, Hana, Lanai, if you're watching out there from Kipahulu, if you can get a signal, this is your person that you know you have two choices to vote for in the primary, and Mahina is one of them. There's a lot of elderly people in your district, and a lot of rural neighborhoods, as you're aware of. Even in the Maui part of your district is a lot of rural neighborhoods, a lot of places that are a long way from services, etc. Are you or your colleagues, I know you're not on those particular committees, but are you aware of you and your colleagues looking at more options for long-term care as we have people live longer and really get beyond the ability of their loved ones to care for them?
Yeah, so that is actually that is an issue that is like at the top of my radar, because I hear it everywhere I go. And I feel it myself, right? Caring for my aging family members. But yeah, it's a hard one to figure out. You know, I know that I think there's a spectrum of services that we need that range from like home assistance to actual like long-term care facilities that are live-in full-time facilities. And then we need the staffing to staff those facilities or to provide these at-home services. I know that this year we did pass a couple measures to help assist with funding, or, you know, a small amount of funding to families who are helping to care for their loved ones, but it's not enough. And yeah, you know, that's an issue that I have to just keep working on, but I hear it from across our district. On Molokai, we have a church that is looking to start up an adult day health program. So we were able to get some money as GIA for that. On Lanai, they're looking to do a small live-in facility as well. I think it's at a church as well. But I think they were able to get federal funding for that. That was something I was following just in case, you know, we could get it in GIA as well. But yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that, you know, minds are focused on this, because everyone will reach that age at some point. And our systems seem to be left over from, I don't know, the 1950s or something, when people just, not as many people lived as long.
Yeah, and we definitely don't have the system set up to accommodate what we know. We can anticipate like people aging up into that population. So I know that we need to do more work around that.
Well, thank you for having it on your radar.
Thank you. And Bruce, you'll be next.
Yes, Mahina, there is a energy afoot on Maui to create rent stabilization, rent control. Rent stabilization is being called here, which has, you know, ramifications, positive and negative. What are your feelings about rent control, rent stabilization, and what do you see that can be done on the state level to help that?
I definitely know that we have a really large renter population in our county, in our state, but you know, rent stabilization, I would actually support looking at that in more detail, because you know, I think there should be an amount of certainty for a tenant to know, have an expectation of a certain amount that their rent could go up, you know, every year, every so many years. than to be just sometimes just sidelined with your rent is, you know, going up by like $1,000 a month and there's nothing you can do about it. So I do think, you know, I'm interested in looking at rent stabilization. I understand though that there are potential drawbacks that, you know, landlords might just choose to not rent, or they might choose to not upkeep, right? So would have to build in some protections for maybe requiring them to also upkeep a property to a certain standard, but then that might make them not want to rent it even more. So I think it's a balance that needs to be found there, but I do think we do need to do more around rental protections. Yeah. As a landlord myself, we have a long-term rental and I would support, you know, being told that we cannot increase beyond a certain percentage every year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Asia, this will be our last question. If you're there, if not, we'll go to Lucy Ann.
I'm here. Sorry, Mahina. I'm wondering. Do you feel like as a state representative that you have do you feel fulfilled in your need to help the people as a state representative? This was a great year for you as far as the bills that you introduced, but there were a lot of bills that didn't pass this year I think we can all agree that should have. Do you find the process frustrating? Do you feel like the longer that you're in there, it will become a more that you'll be able to have more influence? I guess I'm just kind of asking. I know I keep asking these kind of clerical questions.
Well,
but I'm wondering, like, you know, you've been in there for a few years. How are you feeling about it? You're going again, but
you know, I've learned that I'm a very patient person, to an extent. But you know, I know that this process takes time. I found that maybe sometimes taking many smaller bites gets you further than taking the one big bite. And you know, I've started looking at ways like my big water bill. Like maybe I break that down into more manageable pieces, that maybe if one part of it goes and other parts don't, at least one part of it goes, and we keep working on the other stuff. You know, I feel like I've been able to build good relationships with my colleagues, even ones that, you know, we don't necessarily align on all of the issues, but being able to have that that space of respect and being able to have conversations. I think I've done surprisingly well as being sort of an introverted person naturally. But I think the first year was a really steep learning curve. Even just being out of my element from being in the dirt on Molokai to being in downtown Honolulu all the days of the week. But I mean, I'm enjoying it. I love policy making. I'm a policy nerd, so.
Well, I'm glad you're a policy nerd. And Lucy Ann, this will be our final question.
Oh, I get one more question. Well,
you get one more question, and then Bruce will get another question also.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, thank you. I have a question about our oceans. And you know, we are an island state, and we really depend upon our oceans, not only for food, but also for life-giving services. You know, our reefs help protect our shorelines and protect our properties and our towns. So I know over the years there's been some different bills introduced about trying to manage shoreline development so that we don't have to armor our shorelines and things like that. Has anything happened during this session that you feel has been worthwhile in terms of protecting our reefs, protecting our shorelines, or protecting the quality of our oceans?
Well, a few things have happened that come to mind. This session, we did pass a bill to ban prohibit seabed mining in state waters. So I think that's a message. I don't know how vulnerable our state waters were to seabed mining, but if they were, we've protected them. And that bill also does not allow for seabed mining materials to be like processed on land in our state. Also,
That's a good start.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And then I think we passed a resolution last year to designate our reefs as critical infrastructure, to critical natural infrastructure, to acknowledge all of the services they provide beyond just food, which is really important. And then for shoreline, that's a tough one, but you know, we need to start retreating from the shoreline, or we need to start having those plans in place, and we're way behind on that. And we all know it, right? We all know it, we see it, but then like the action to follow up and do it is not there yet. Yeah, but you know, as the vice chair of the Waterland Committee, I'm in charge. I've been allowed the privilege to be in charge of resolutions. So part of the resolutions that come through are their, I guess, easements. We have to approve easements that the BLNR approved for like shoreline encroachments or structures. And so I have to work with them to figure out a better way, because we've been doing the same process for decades and it's just not working anymore. I did try to insert language into them, you know, saying that this is not aligned with the public trust, that, you know, we shouldn't be continuing to do this as a common practice. It's bad, but the language got deleted, but not by me. But yeah, those are a couple things that come to mind. Oh, and then not necessarily the legislature, but Kipahulu did get their CBSFA passed.
Right, that was a historic achievement, that a community
Yep.
can manage its own shoreline fisheries and the health of the oceans. It's taking us in the right direction.
Well, and that's like bottoms up. That's community. Like they did that for over a decade. So I've been supporting that since even before I was in office, following all the different CBSFAs and supporting them, because I really love that model of like community driven, community owned processes. And the state doesn't have the resources to manage all of its holdings and all of its responsibilities. And we really need to do better at finding ways for like proactive partnerships with communities. And that's one really good example.
That's
well,
great.
Thank you so much. A little bit of hope there.
And that is inspiring too, in terms of community engagement. And Bruce, this will be the last question.
Big issue on Maui, especially after the fires, is affordable housing, not just for tenants, but also for first-time home buyers or any home buyers. And particularly now with FEMA driving up the rental rates, and that party is going to end soon when FEMA stops its support. What do you see able to do on the legislative end to help the affordable housing situation on Maui?
Well, it's another really comprehensive question with a lot of different answers. I think after, the fires and that just, the housing needs just exponentially growing, and then we saw the issues with FEMA. There are several things that I would like to work on. Over the first session, I introduced a bill to increase conveyance tax rates over the $2 million level to try to help to curb, luxury home sales or those higher end sales. This session, I supported another bill to do the same thing. Neither of them passed, but I think in addition to building more units, I really want to find ways that we can legally reserve those units for our local residents. And sometimes it's hard to do depending on where the funding is coming from. But if we're continuing to build, then we have to make sure local residents are being put in those units, because it's really hard to compete with mainland buyers. I think, I don't have all the answers, but like another idea that I had was, when homes get foreclosed on, in that unfortunate situation, that the county, the state, or like a community organization should have the first right of refusal to purchase those properties, because a lot of times they get bought up by investment corporations that renovate them and flip them for costs that can't be afforded. So that's one idea I had. I know it doesn't fix the whole problem, but yeah, I mean, the adaptive reuse, we did pass a bill to allow adaptive reuse of commercial spaces into long-term units. Yeah, it's not an easy problem to solve. I'm all ears for solutions, though. Ideas for solutions. It's not my area of expertise, but I'm definitely aware of it. I want to help to fix the issue, and I'm open to suggestions, honestly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mahina. And thank you, Mahina, for this interview and to share your insights and your challenges and your successes that you've had so far this first 2 years in office. And we're so glad that you're running again. And for those of you who are still tuned in to our interview here, we'll be doing more interviews on a regular basis so that we can get information to you about our candidates so that you become informed voters. It's very important that when you do cast your ballot, that you really go for the people who really support then what you want, what you feel is important. There'll be ballots that'll be going in the mail the end of July, so it's not too far off. We'll also then, after the primary, which is very important for our state races, we'll have then the November races too. So again, keep on plugging in, learn about the candidates, so that when you cast your votes, it's one that really does support them, what you truly want, supports the people and the Āina. So thank you for watching. Again, Mahina, thank you, and for all our participants in the interview process. Mahalo.